Okay, it is 9:31, and I'm going to call the meeting to order. So we're missing two of our people, our regulars, and including our chair. And so I'm going to fill in for her today. Looking over the agenda, there's only one thing that I think we need to add to the agenda at the top of old business, is that's to discuss the manager's report that was put off or tabled from last meeting, but we can also put that item under this manager's report again.
It's already under
staff for the staff, so we'll discuss it there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's just more an opportunity if anybody has questions about that. I don't necessarily present on it, but if someone has questions, feel free.
So you feel like it should be added to the agenda?
It's already
on the
Okay.
agenda.
All right.
It's just because it had been tabled, I wasn't sure if it needed to be one of the first things addressed. Okay, but if everybody's okay with the agenda as put forth, is there any issues in regards to that?
I move we approve it.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay. Let's approval of the April 9th advisory board minutes. Are there any adjustments or additions that need to take place?
I move to approve minutes from April 9th.
I second.
All in favor? All right, moving right along. Okay, looking around us, there is no public invited to be heard, so we'll just move forward. And we'll move on to old business, the digitalized scrapbook. We did have a meeting in regards to that, and we're working our way through that with a little hiccups, but it's going to come together. And so I'm working on that. Karen's working on that. Cindy has stepped off that committee. If there's anybody else that chooses to want to work with us on doing the digitalized scrapbook, it's relatively easy now that I have a better, clear understanding exactly what we're doing. So I would like to set up another time that we can work on this the next month, but I know May is a horrible month, so maybe we could look at doing that maybe the first week in June. Look at the calendars.
Or do you want to follow up with Karen and pick a date that works for you all?
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to wait too
see if the
until
house is
her
available
schedule
and
is
if anybody else
available
can
and that kind of
join.
stuff. Yeah, but if there's anybody else that would like to help us with that, it's basically we're looking at the pages, we're doing it in a simplified language and putting it in. And honestly, one of the things I did want to bring up, just as a question to you, Brittany, once this is done, I know you can hit and have it read it, those points out to you. So is there a reason why we have to then pay somebody to do a video to verbally record that same knowledge when the computer knowledge is already out there that you can just tap it and have your computer read it to you?
So, LPM is contracted with the city for a certain amount of hours, so we're not paying anything extra for this project.
Okay.
Unless, basically they're going to do it, they have a certain amount of hours set aside each month with the city. So every time that they have extra hours available that they're not filling with other city projects, they're going to work on this project. In fact, I just had a meeting with them yesterday. But the idea is that that there's another avenue of accessibility for somebody, because the screen readers, I don't know how in depth those go, but alt text and things like that is going to be more of a summary. Mm-hmm. So the idea is to provide for people that can't experience visually, that they can experience it in audio with someone going through and providing more detail than they might get from like the alt text and potentially from the screen readers. Okay. So
maybe we could pick out some very specific things that they could go more in depth about describing.
We could. What they are starting with, I just met with their owner yesterday, and what he's starting with is he's got the PDF of the first scrapbook and basically put it into, ChatGPT and had it kind of summarize the entire scan of the PDF with a few different prompts. And so we can kind of, when they have those, then we can review those and see what that looks like, see if it's kind of the information that we want to focus on and present, and then go from there.
Okay.
So I think based on that from yesterday, they were estimating that each book, I think it was, a couple hours to get the sort of script. It's not really a script, but to get the sort of overview in place, and then a couple hours for somebody to do the readings. And that's based on the first scrapbook, which is smaller than most of the others, but, maybe 4 hours or so for each. And the idea is that this is something that's going to happen over a long period of time, maybe, 2 or 3 years even, I don't know, as they have extra time.
Okay. The big thing is I just didn't want to duplicate work. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
If we're doing simplified language and we're looking at using the chat as well to work on it, to put it in more simplified language, I just don't want it to be extra overkill. And my other concern was that would cost us money.
Yeah, it shouldn't unless, they don't have extra time for a long period of time and we want to contract additional hours, but that's not something that we have to do since there's no deadline for this project. It's just kind of as we can. And I think the idea too is that, I don't know, there's some concern over whether or not the screen readers can get into all those little articles and details and things like that. I'm not sure how that works exactly.
If we're summarizing those articles already in a reader format.
Well, the alt text is a very, very brief. You can take a 5-page article, and the alt text is going to give you a couple sentences summarizing that. So, that's a very brief overview. The other reason for this is there's not a lot of guidance on how to make historic documents accessible. And so basically the guidance is do your best to create several avenues of accessibility. And so this is another one that, hopefully nobody can come back and say we didn't do our best to create accessibility for these items.
So it's more personable.
Yeah.
And
hopefully
they're doing
more
it anyway. They're being
information.
paid by the city, so it's nothing out of our
Right.
pocket.
Yeah. In fact, if
pocket.
anything, sometimes, LPM isn't always able to fill their hours with city projects. So it's kind of a good way to fill some hours for them.
It's a win-win.
So
Wonderful.
I think so.
Cool.
Especially since there's no deadline. They can just do it over time as they have additional time. So
Yeah.
Okay.
It sounds like what you guys are doing is probably more nuanced as far as knowledge of the house compared to the computer.
The big thing is to not overdo it and to keep it simple.
yeah, they're working
Yeah,
on the alt
That's
text.
the
So,
biggest thing is to just pare it down to just and just to cover what we need to cover without missing details. It's it is more nuanced, but also we are going by counting the pages instead of So we're learning as we're going, but we're going to get it down. So moving right along to the updated video. You sent an email out to everybody, and it looks like the 19th looks like the best time to meet in the afternoon.
I think so. Let me just double check when the house is available. So we've got a rental that morning, but I think after 1:30 would probably be the earliest.
Okay.
Or actually, we've got let's say 1 o'clock, if that works.
Okay.
Because that we can have the rental.
Okay. Is that good for everyone?
Cleaned up.
1 o'clock.
Me.
Okay, and I know that we could piggyback some other committees on that along those lines as soon as we're done with that, if possible. So moving right along to the patrons of the Callahan House, we'd like to schedule a meeting to piggyback on that regards to that. The
What
patrons
is
of
there still to
Callahan.
do for patrons?
The patrons, if we could piggyback along once we're done with the video.
What are we doing with that
Just
meeting?
a committee meeting to verify the book pamphlet and
So the room by room tour booklet?
yes.
Okay. So I think patrons we hit all of the things we were going to, other than there was talk of a news release, but I don't know that
So basically, if we could just, how long do you think the video is going to take?
Ideally not more than 90 minutes, because I have a meeting 90 minutes after that.
Okay, so can we say at 2 o'clock we could just put a quick committee meeting
Sure.
in addition
For the
to
booklet?
that? For the patrons of the Callahan House, yeah.
Okay, so I'm confused. Patrons, I think, is like kind of a wrapped up program for the most part. Do you need are you talking about the tour booklet meeting?
I believe it's, Karen asked me to see if we could schedule the patrons of the Callahan House. She's the chair for that, and could we back it on? And I said, I'll ask and we'll see what we can do. So
Don't we have a follow-up piece where we need to be reaching out to businesses and people?
yeah, I believe that
Yeah, I
is the
think
follow-up.
that's
Okay.
the next step
Okay,
in that
gotcha.
process.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
patrons
Thank
at
you
2
for the
o'clock.
clarification.
Okay, well, that's the next item anyhow, so that works.
Okay. Okay. Because I can't speak anymore on that. Future restoration and preservation.
Dining table updates. We have reached out to 4 more vendors to get quotes, because there's just kind of putting out a lot of feelers. I did hear back from the one that I got from you, Ben, and they were like, well, we can bid, but we think there might be other people out there that might be better for this project. So I was like, well, you can still bid because we still need a second quote. And then basically. And then I haven't heard back yet. But so I sent 3 more feelers out to some local furniture restoration. Like, we just need to get a second quote so we can move forward.
So basically,
just trying to put some feelers out there.
we're not using the guy that we had put forth, but
I mean, we still need to go through the process, but in the
Have to
end,
find
we can.
quote.
Yeah.
Somebody's got
itself.
to put something.
Yeah, like
in.
we have to have 2 quotes before we can move
Yeah.
forward. That doesn't mean we can't still choose,
Yeah.
memory lane.
Yeah.
okay.
But yeah,
Because along those lines, when we had the Questers meeting here, it was not only were we going to receive the setting up I need to set up a time for Brittany and you and Karen to receive the check from Questers for the amount that we do have, and we're also going to be fundraising at the Strawberry Festival this weekend in regards to Questers, in regards for this table and dining room set, in addition to the garage sale that will be coming up on the 6th and 7th, correction of dates on that, I had that wrong, the 6th and 7th of June. It looks like the state Questers organization, we had the national conference here right during COVID. Oh, surprise! And we couldn't meet. And so there's additional funds there. I believe it's about 1,000 something or more. And they're willing to put that towards this project,
Great. apparently,
without us doing more. But one of the stipulations was that who was restoring it. And yeah, so it's I think we'll get an additional 1,000 to 1,500. I'm not sure exactly on the amounts on that, but to put towards the preservation of the dining room table. I'm very excited about that.
Yeah.
She was at our meeting and was looking at everything very in depth.
Cool.
So that'll be good. Are we doing anything more in regards to submitting? Anything for future restoration preservation on the house?
I think we have enough projects in the work for that right now. But in terms of the repointing, because we did have to get a second quote for that. So the folks that came out to give the quote basically were of the feeling that the work doesn't need to be done. So I don't know. Now we're kind of tossing that around. But also, since then, the fountain is in need of some repair. It's got a major leak again. So we're thinking that we might hold off on the repointing and focus on the fountain right now. Yeah.
How much are you thinking that's going to?
No idea until we can get some
So
quotes
it's not
for it.
working at all?
It's working. It's just leaking very badly.
Oh, okay. That's the great thing about restoration and preservation. We never know what's going to break down next.
Yeah, so there's
Okay.
always projects available. And the other things that we had kind of talked about and gotten quotes, we got a quote for the stained glass windows. The other thing we had talked about was the wood floor, and actually
Yeah.
the advice basically from that was instead of sanding it at all was to keep waxing, because that's what's there. Because if they go through and remove the wax and do some kind of other seal, there's concern about I guess not being able to get through all the layers and having like pieces of the old sealant, just not being able to get all of that unless they were to sand, which is
Completely, yeah.
potentially dangerous because
The
the
parquet.
panels are thin and they don't want to ruin the parquet. So long story short with that,
Wax it.
keep waxing it, yeah. Which is weirdly hard to find people that are still like waxing wood floors, because that was what I initially had intended, or like initially had reached out about, and went through a couple different vendors that were like, yeah, we can do it, and then they showed up and were like, no, we don't do that. So, and then the third one that's come out to take a look and see what should be done also doesn't actually wax the floors. So anyway, finding somebody that can do like a deep clean and a wax. I didn't anticipate it being hard to find somebody to do that, but we'll find somebody. But anyway, that's
Never simple.
What about the stained glass were you talking about?
Both of the stained glass panels have some like cracked panels and things like that. So getting those restored, similarly to how the library window was done and things like that. So we do have a standing quote for that from Empire.
And how much is that?
I will have to look. It's been a while since they submitted that, but actually I think that quote was intended for a CIP project, so it was like a 2030
That's
quote. Not to say that we can't do it before then, but
okay.
So it's on the
so
in the
there's
works.
there's
I
a
mean,
lot of
on the table.
Yeah, and so I think we don't necessarily need to add any new projects right now. There's plenty of things to be working towards. So unless something comes up.
That's okay.
Yeah. So-
Sounds like we've got lots of stuff on the plate. Okay. Moving forward to the restricted areas and camp mitigation.
Yeah, so we did choose a quote and are moving forward with one of the fencing companies. They came out the other day to do kind of like a final walkthrough, and then they're working on the permits for the project. So we're just waiting on the permits from the city, and that could also entail, well, here's how this project can go. One of the things that they're thinking is like the landing for the top of the auto house stairs, that the gate will probably, instead of being right at the top of the stairs, will probably have to be, they'll have to there has to be a landing there. So
Oh,
instead of
code.
the gate being right at the
Maybe
stairs,
that
they'll have
would
to
be a code
build out
thing.
that square.
Yeah.
So I think that's the only change that they're potentially anticipating.
Okay.
Because there has to be a landing for any stair access. But other than that, they are hoping that everything gets approved in a timely manner, and then we can move forward with that project. So
by meeting code, we're actually going to make it easier for somebody to jump over.
no, because the fence is going to be to a height that, and then
It's still going to be.
yeah, there's not going to be a bar at the top, so it's just going to be the chain link. So you can't really climb that if there's no
Chain link.
over here where the auto house is.
Are we putting chain link right
It's the
there?
same
There's already
thing.
chain link there.
It's the same stuff that's already there.
Yeah, they're just continuing the same. That's what has been talked about this whole time. So, but the point, to not put a bar at the top so you can't climb that, because the height and the lack of anything to. I mean, somebody really wants to get down there, they can do something crazy parkour and get down there. But the idea is to make it, not easily accessible, and to designate that this is a restricted area. Because if people are climbing fences, then even though it's a public property, then they're at the point of trespass.
Yeah.
So,
I just, at some point, that isn't the prettiest area of the.
no, but they're
property.
continuing what's there for now, and if in future
It's
that
another
whole
project.
thing gets redone, I don't know what that would look like. But right now they're just continuing what's already there.
Yep.
So.
Great. Any comments? Questions?
The other piece of that, is the lighting. We're not doing the major lighting project like we were talking about, but we are just replacing the two fixtures on the auto house that One of them doesn't work at all. One of them sometimes works, but with LED fixtures that are period appropriate. So
Okay.
I've been working with the company to choose something that looks like the photos that we looked at, the sort of like turn of the century lamppost style.
As we discussed last month.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
So it'll be something along those lines. And we're just working on finding one that will fit the fixture.
Okay.
The other piece of that was the fixture right above the front door here. I don't know if anybody is recalling what that looks like, but is potentially replacing that with a period appropriate fixture because it's
This
very
one at the
the
front.
one right here that's like really ultra modern and a bit of an eyesore as well. They're doing these to go ahead and do the same thing on this
So
one
it looks
so that it doesn't look
Uniform.
the way it looks.
consistent. The way it looks now.
Yeah.
Kind of like having the big. Okay, we won't go.
Yeah.
I won't bring that up because it's a sore point of the fire canister. I get. Okay, got it.
Yeah, so we're just waiting on the permits basically for the fencing.
Okay. Any other questions or concerns from the board? Okay, moving forward. Okay, the 2025 calendar events, club affair, and unity in the community. Have we heard anything?
Yes, we did finally get a quote from them, and I actually met with somebody from the chamber yesterday to go look at the space that they are offering us. So the space is, as we talked about, it's the library plaza. So that entire space out in front of the library, like between the library and the civic center, is being offered to us. It's a big space. It's a great space. They usually offer it to a specific group every year that can activate it and bring people in. So last year, I think it was the St. Vrain Valley School District that did that space. So they typically offer that space for a minimum of $4,000. However, they're offering it to us for $2,000. And so that we could, if it's similar to the footprint of the South Garden here, I think even a little bigger, we could get some more things in there. So if we did, like the 20 booths that we're able to get in the South Garden, that's asking for a $200 table fee. If we get more things in, it could be less, but compared to, we asked for a $50 donation last year for Club Affair, and we had 115 people come through. 215 people come through. 50 of those, keep in mind, were like the vendors. So let's say 150 people came through. That space has thousands and thousands of people that come to Unity.
It is.
So I think asking somebody to pay $200 versus $50 for way more exposure is really not steep at all. The vendors that pay to be there, I think pay an $800 table fee. And so if we're asking for $200 or potentially less if we get more vendors, like, long story short, the chamber is offering us a really great deal.
Screaming.
Yeah.
What's the date?
August 22nd. I gotta double check now. August 22nd.
Offhand, do we know which groups we had here that also participated?
Yes, good question. The only two that we believe, because I sent the list to the chamber, I think it's Rotary and Meals on Wheels maybe are overlapping. So they were going to talk about, I think there might be more than that, but those are the two that they mentioned
Women's
yesterday. Maybe
Women's
Work, Rotary, and who was the third?
Meals on Wheels, I think.
Those that definitely do their own booth because I've seen them there.
So they were, the chamber was going to decide how they wanted to approach that, like if they want to go ahead and secure them. And I think their intention for us is to focus more on clubs that are looking for members and have like a kind of a more diverse footprint and offering. Obviously, we still want to invite, the folks that we have invited in our clubs that meet in the house. But last year before Unity, sort of towards a little bit too close to the event, we had opened it up like a public call for clubs that were interested. So I'd like to, if we're going to move forward with this, we need to get going like now.
Yeah,
because it's a big shoe to fill, and we want to,
if anything,
activate that space.
I'm kind of having a.
Well, that's my only
moment
thought too.
because
Is
this
like,
is close.
yeah, we don't have a lot of time. Although I guess Unity, the one nice thing is they do a lot of the marketing, so we don't necessarily have. Obviously, we're still going to do the marketing that we would do, but we wouldn't have to worry about getting the word out there about people coming to the event, but it's more making sure that we're filling our space and activating it in an engaging way, and making sure that we,
I'm concerned because this is a short time.
I am too. That was my biggest concern in a nutshell, is the amount of time that we have to properly utilize the space that they're offering us. I don't know if we said, this is great, thank you so much, can we reserve it for next year? I don't know. But that was my only concern also, is doing a good job in the time that we have.
I'm almost wondering if we could push it off to next year, because I'm concerned that what if we get there and we have crickets, because we can't fill all the spots.
Yeah.
This is a short turnaround for us to really get, I know we have the list together, and Candy, you really took the charge of this for what we had here with the club affair. Do you think we can really fill those spots in such a short period of time?
No, I don't think so. And I wonder also, I'm a little leery about how many would be willing to do the $200 when a lot of the groups that we had, I think we kind of took up the slack, and we had groups here that wouldn't participate in
Because it was
the
too
downtown
expensive.
thing because it was too expensive.
Yeah.
And then again, we had some groups who participate in both, and are we pilfering, so to speak, if we invite AWW for $200 to be a part of it, when normally they do it for $800?
Well, and that's something that the chamber is aware of, and that's going to be for them to kind of decide how they want to navigate that. But I think, how we present it to groups would be really important, because yes, we're asking them to potentially pay another $150 from what they paid here, but for maybe 150 people exposure versus several thousand people exposure is a big difference. It's like some of the groups just can't pay a $200 table fee, and so it just is what it is. But I think if we can open it up to some other groups, I don't know, then again, is somebody's chess club wanting to pay $200 to find members? I don't know, or different ways to activate the space.
So,
Go ahead, Julie.
well, I didn't see the whole thing last year, but if they're here, they're in a shady garden, whereas if they're at the library, it's just the concrete, really bright.
It's concrete,
and
yeah.
sunny.
It's still in the
So whether
evening, so
people-
I don't know.
Okay.
But we
Yes,
still
that's
have
what I
a
was gonna
grand.
ask the time frame.
And you're not actually
Yeah, I think
bringing
it's
people to
whatever it is,
It's
4 to 8 or whatever.
It is 4 to 8.
Some-
isn't
I think
it?
it's
a Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Friday night,
Um,
and it's 4
What
to
is
8.
the board's, what would be your goal of moving and paying the money and taking the risk to go? What is the driving force of doing that?
The driving force is to get us. The community keeps on growing, and there's so many people that don't know we're here. They drive past us and they don't know we're here. And I think it's one of those things it's to fulfill our mission of education and community outreach. I think that's really what it is.
So you would have a Callahan booth, and then you would also be asking vendors to pay you to also be this is what's happening.
Our club meets
Yeah.
at Callahan House, that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah, basically
Or there's
bringing the club affair event that we did and taking it over there to have, much larger exposure. And say, here's what we do. We host clubs. This is, why the house was donated in the first place.
Yeah.
And activating the space also. We had the dancers and the orchestra out last year, and I think that's part of the expectation is to activate the space, and that the booths would also create some kind of activation.
And maybe we could activate the choral group that come and sing. They do that, but I don't know. Do they do that at the? I can't remember. Do they do that at Unity Community? Do they have an additional?
Oh,
I've never been to it. I don't know.
they have bands and stuff.
They have
that play.
bands and all sorts of stuff. It's a big deal. There's a lot of people there, but all those groups, like you're saying, I feel like we're kind of ciphering off the. I don't
Well,
wanna
but the
compete
chamber, is aware of that and still wants to move forward with the event. So it would just be, it would be up to the chamber to decide if this is a group that's usually with them, if they would make the offer to them, or if we would be able to. But
And that
I
was
still think
the
it would
only
last with
space
a lot of
available.
people.
there wasn't an option for you to just have the $800 booth, like it was the whole shebang?
I think we probably could. We didn't really talk about that, but then
Gotcha.
that's $800 out of our pocket as opposed to a
Right,
potential.
that's a chunk of
Because it wouldn't
change.
really be a fundraising opportunity for us either. It would just be like an exposure and community outreach opportunity. But we'd want to make sure we at least got our costs covered by the table fees of whoever would join us in that space. But
Absolutely, and then do we open it up and think about reaching out and talking to St. Fran Historic Society, and do we promote the big event that we're going to be having at Christmas? I mean, I can see potential win-wins for everybody, but the biggest concern I have is that turnaround date.
yeah, I agree.
Is what?
The turnaround date, getting it ready to
Yeah,
go.
I
Do you
agree.
need to know?
They need to know from us by June 1st.
It
Can
seems
you
to
talk
me that
about
you'd
it?
want to be working the first 5 months of the year to get commitments.
Yes.
And say, yes, we're going to do this.
I think it's too late.
And then you know by June 1 whether we can do it next
Yeah.
year, right? I mean, if we have $1,500, $1,600 worth of commitments at that point,
Yeah.
we'll make it happen. If we only have 400, a few of them, then like, okay,
Yeah,
this
this
is
is-
not for us.
It's a really cool opportunity, but that was my concern too. Is
Yeah.
like I don't want to be scrambling and then we don't fulfill the hopes of
Yeah,
like,
I
space.
don't. I like to aim high and look, but I don't want to go overreach and go under where we should be. I personally think we need to make a decision about, as a board, whether we want to move forward with this for this year, because we have to decide by June 1st, or if we should bow out and say thank you, but could we look at it for next year?
Yeah.
It's just too quick. When you said August 22nd, I know I gasped a little because I'm just like,
That was when I saw the space and she was talking about everything, like I was like, this is amazing, but yeah, the timing it's a little scary.
Very scary. And
So
we've
when-
got other projects on our plate too.
Well,
I'm sorry,
yeah.
Diana.
No, that's okay. So we can, if we do this in the garden, we can have the banner, we can still advertise through the city, right? That
Well,
will be
that-
or can we?
Yes, we can. That was my other thought. Is originally, Club Affair was never really meant to be an annual event. We did it last year. I'm sort of wondering if the idea is that we can't put something together in that period of time.
I think
We
look
probably don't do Club Affair here this year either, and we kind of put our efforts towards being really ready to do a big event with Unity next year. Would be my thought, but
that's kind of where I'm going.
especially with all of the other projects we've got going on, like you said, Candy. We want to get the video finished up. We're working on the scrapbook. Patrons is new.
we got a lot of stuff on our
There's
plate.
plenty going on. It seems
I
like
agree. I think we're sometimes spreading ourselves too thin with too many things going on.
Yeah.
We need to be taking some of these things off the list instead of just keeping them there and not
Yeah.
finishing them up.
agreed.
Yeah,
Especially
adding
since we're
to-
going even a little bigger this year with Art Walk and
Yeah,
Right.
maybe just
And the
concentrate
patrons.
more on Art Walk.
yeah,
Because that's still a community thing, still
Yeah.
fulfilling that part of our mission.
definitely. Yeah, and that's even like
So
soon after. So the time frame is still
Right.
Still,
So I'm going to put it out there. If I could get a motion that we could postpone this, I guess I'm going to, as a chair, I can move. I'm going to make a motion that we table this until next year and reconsider it at that time. If you'd be so kind to reach back out to them.
Wow.
Can I get a second?
Second it.
All in favor? Okay. It's been moved and seconded, and we'll move forward that this is going to just be put on the 2026 year.
And again, even, now, kind of in the Club Affair timeline from last year, you can let the clubs know, hey, we're not going to do this year. We're looking at more of it every few years. But next year, we're going to be doing this bigger thing. Start thinking about it now, and yes, the costs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, basically, that's what we had said anyway when we talked
Yeah.
to them, when we
Yeah.
did the event, that this was not going to be an annual thing. This was going to be every other year. At least that's what I stated when I talked to the people, so.
And once you find out if they're willing to
Let us
have us back next year,
Yeah.
then we should begin working on it. So you're right, we've got this all in place by the time it's
Yeah.
June 1 rolls around and
Yeah.
we say yes.
We
we'll
can
do it.
provide a really great use of that space.
But are we interested in having a booth at Unity and Community?
That's an $800
yeah.
chunk of change, guys, and I think the whole purpose of it was to make sure that we're doing somewhat of a raising aspect to it, and to do an outreach. So maybe we consider doing more of a. We are already doing a booth for Art Walk, so
I think that
Are
also
we doing
depends.
a booth for Art Walk?
that
For
was
Art
my
Walk?
understanding
Yeah, I
that
thought
we're
we
doing
were.
a booth.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought we were.
I feel like that's why
Yeah,
Yeah.
to
the
direct
idea that
people.
there would be a booth also.
Right,
in addition
yes,
to
right.
that.
Yeah, and that was my understanding, that we were doing a booth
And
in addition to having
With this
artists there.
conversation, it allows the opportunity to really focus on that.
Yeah.
So I
we
think
really
the chamber would
focus on
also
that.
have to let you know that this is on the table for next year. Like,
Yeah.
If they say no, we already have somebody in mind for that space, then that kind of negates the.
There
Yeah.
we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we
Mhm.
move forward.
Or it's like, well, the discount's only going to be this year, and now you have to pay $4,000
Right.
next year.
Yeah.
'Cause
$4,000.
recouping
I think
4K is going to be a little bit different.
That's true.
I think
Yeah, if they
$4,000
can offer the
just
same
takes it out of the ballpark
rate.
price wise. That's
Yeah,
not realistic.
that's silly. That's a silly number. So
Does the city have like pop-ups and stuff that we can use?
Tents.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we have
Okay.
great tents.
Okay, so we don't need to get.
Kristen paid $8 million
that kind of
for a
stuff.
couple tents.
I barely scratched the PDF.
And they say like City of Longmont, and then we could add Callahan banners and stuff to them. Okay.
Okay, wonderful.
This is for
For
Art
Art
Walk.
Walk. Yeah.
Art Walk, okay.
Okay. All right. So I'll follow up with Chamber and see if we can get the same rate and have that space next year potentially. Cool. Okay.
And one thing that I want to call attention to is we can't really advertise this Christmas home tour thing
Mm-mm.
because they keep it secret, basically. So
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
Thank you for reiterating that in my mind, because I tend to already get, okay, how are we going to do this? So that actually covers the committee formation and meeting dates of Club Affair and
Okay.
Unity, and we'll just put that off until next year. And we can address having a committee for that at the beginning of January at that point. So it should be tabled until the January 1st meeting of 2026.
Do you think? Okay.
Don't you think?
Yeah, we've got enough to work on.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, Chamber doesn't even like they don't even have their people sorted out for Unity yet. So they said they haven't like put out the call yet. So I think
Okay.
Okay.
yeah.
Committee updates. Art Walk, we've just discussed that. The room room tour booklet is June. Fall tea, June. I do have a quick thing about the Art Walk committee update. So, part of the reason I know there was a reach out to you, Brittany, about the audio system. Interesting thing. So when we had the Japanese assembly meet here with
Sister Cities.
Sister Cities, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Good words today. Talked to the city councilman Popkin, and he does jazz and does all sorts of stuff and goes down to Denver, and he's a really qualified musician, and he said he'd be thrilled to do part of this, and would we consider doing having him do a set? And I said, interesting concept. Yes, I'll take you up on that. And in the meantime, Karen also discussed with the band group that she wanted to get, and they were feeling so bad about it that he would like to come and do a first set. So we might have two different artists come at that time and break up the time for the music. Popkin also does music down at the farmer's market, so it's family friendly. He doesn't have quite the following that we've had in the past, but this other group certainly does. And if they could come and do the first set for how many minutes before they have to be up to the set in Fort Collins, he's willing to do that. And so we're looking at a variety of splitting up the music that way.
What's his name?
Is it Matthew? Matthew Popkin?
P-O,
Yeah, he's the city councilman.
P-O-P-K-E-N?
I believe so. He's the first. He's in this, took over the second district
Yeah.
area. Anyway, it was just one of those passing by things that I was discussing, that we were looking for musicians. By the way, do you know any? And he wanted to play the piano here, and was it well tuned? And I said, well, as a matter of fact, it is.
What was the name of the band that Karen was talking to?
I want to say the
Remember?
Bandits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a couple of the musicians, not the full band, but it would be like 3 of them or something.
Okay. So they had another set or another show already booked that they can maybe play part of the day. Okay.
Yeah, so it's in the works. We're working on coming up with various everything, and for that, but that I thought was an interesting little.
How many artists do you have response?
10 of 20.
10.
Yeah, 10 of 20, and we said that the response was due July 15th. So
They've got time.
yeah,
And
and we had a
they'll
lot in the
last
beginning, and then they've been kind of like trickling in since then. But I think we'll fill it pretty easily, and I think maybe here sometime in early June I might send out another. Hey, did
By
you
the
see
way.
this?
Yeah,
So,
a
Just a
reminder.
follow up. Yeah.
as far as the youth names, I know Brittany sent out an email to all the professional artists, and then also sent out an email to all of us saying that there was no restrictions from the city. Should I send out to the youth artists? And like nobody responded to your email.
Well, we were discussing that, and that's one of those things that I wanted to discuss it at the committee meeting.
Okay.
But I guess we're here. It's one of those things. I don't want any backlash in regards to that if we haven't reached out and asked other schools, and I think we need to even it out and find a better way to put it out there so we can open it, whether we ask one school per year or something along those lines. Because we're representing the city, it's a tricky fine line. And then we also have the other issue of the sales tax. Now, Brittany's going to be gone. So dealing with the other professional artists deal with all their own sales tax. They do all of that. And that's another concern, that asking a student to be in charge of their own sales tax and to be responsible for reporting and doing all that. I think at this time we as a committee should come up with a better way to handle this. So for next year, I think we do offer them a table, a youth table and whatnot. But how do we go about? We need to set up parameters of how do we set that up. Does it make sense?
And really, I just wanted that type of feedback because it's the end of the school year, and I just wanted to let the students know.
No, and I feel like I'm letting students down.
All my conversation with the student, he's been saying thanks for the opportunity. And I didn't say anything about the city not having any restrictions because I wanted the committee to decide. And all that he knows is that I was having a committee meeting. So.
I'm going back and forth, but I really think it's a precedent, and I think we set it up and do it well.
Yeah.
And do it right the first time, and not have any miscommunication or step on feelings or you know how. Longmont still is Longmont, and it's still a community, and people talk, and I just think that we as the city need to really represent. And Art Walk technically is an opportunity for professional artists to do this. If we're going to do this, I think we need to have more input and open it for everyone in the district. We can't just pick and choose. I just think why did they get an opportunity and we didn't, type of thing could happen, and I don't want the city to look bad.
Well, and if you sell anything at one of our things, you have to have a license to do that.
Yeah.
So that would be a criteria for anybody,
Okay.
including high school folks. If there's an exchange of money at one of our events, then they have to deal with sales tax, and kids are not almost never going to be set up for that. That's just a
Because I think they've just done like they have a Venmo, but maybe they just do it within their friend group and stuff.
yeah.
Okay.
My son does photography, and he just everything he's ever been paid, I think, is under the table. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it just,
Okay.
Iris.
I'm
coming knocking.
So that's a good point. I don't know the friend I suggested, if she has a sales tax, she's sold a lot of things. She lives out in Carbon
Probably
Valley.
can't be that hard.
Well, there's not. Yeah, it's not that you necessarily have to have like a permit ahead of time, but it is on the artist,
It's
and I
on
provide
them.
them the
It's
form.
on them.
But it's on them
So-
to report, to
But we
use the
just-
form
and
and
they're
report
an
their
adult
sales tax
and
to
they
the city
are responsible.
after the event. So there's not like a special
yeah, let's
requirement
not
ahead of
get
time.
too like locked down on this.
That's what I
thing.
wondered.
But my point is that we know as high school kids, they're not going to be set up for
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
And so
mhm.
what we don't know with an adult, we don't know, and it's not my concern. So.
Okay, yeah, I never heard of
Yeah,
that
it's
before.
completely. It's like not up to us to make sure that they follow through with that. I provide them the form and say,
This
you
is
need
what
to
you
do
need to
this,
do.
and whether they do it or not is between them and the IRS. But yeah, we're the state.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So do you see all the ramifications of where I'm just like going, I don't know, I got to think about this. So I think in addition, I just don't think that we need to add one more thing onto Brittany's plate. She's got her wedding, and that's what she should be focusing on, in my opinion.
Appreciate you.
But no.
But after you
Yeah.
get married,
By the way, you're completely on the hook. So watch out, it's a coming.
Thank you for taking time to answer my question.
Yeah, and that's exactly. I was going to set.
I'm fine with it.
Okay. Okay. Moving right along then. We're going to be discussing all of this in June. We've got the spring open house. Wait a minute. Is there any more comments or discussion on that agenda item?
when is the date for the fall tea again? I feel like it should be
October
5th, I think.
That first Sunday.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
October 5th.
Okay.
Thank you. Flip through my calendar real quick. Yes. 2 to 4. And again, the fall tea is not going to be just for past board members. We're going to be reaching out to other community members as well, including additional boards and historic groups. So it's not going to be just a smaller thing. All right. Any other discussion? Okay, moving forward to the spring open house. The spring open house debrief.
So we had 107 people come, which is pretty good. Last year we had 117 in a 3-hour time span. So this year was 2 hours, and we had 10 less people. So that's great. We did all the usual marketing for that, and that, that's about typical for the April open house. Is usually a little bit smaller, but 100 people is good. So we had 86 in the first hour and 21 in the second hour. So yeah, I think that 2-hour time frame works well. We had done 3 hours in the past, and that third hour was always like maybe 5 people would walk in. So yeah, that was good. And we rolled out the patrons program. So yeah, got all of that together and was able to do that. Handed out a lot of information. We didn't collect any emails for patron. We did end up doing a separate email list from the regular email list. So there weren't any patron specific emails collected. But I think this will be kind of it was just the initial sort of rollout, and so we can reach out to community members and things like that. Hopefully build up some momentum with that over time. We got 27 regular emails. No merchandise was sold, and then we got $49 in donations. So pretty typical for an April open house. The
I found
July
out-
and everything's always more, but
I know we didn't have 10 more people, but I still think what we had was good. And
Oh, yeah.
we had new people that hadn't been home before, and that's always good. And we knew that we were going to hit some bumps with rolling out the patrons program in the first place, but quite frankly, the bumps were at a minimum. I thought the bookmarks looked really good.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah.
Yeah, everything went smoothly, and we utilized the public event banners for the first time, and they seem to be sturdy.
Yeah, nice.
I think they look good.
They look
I think they look good.
Yeah, they look good. And I did them a little differently than we had done the engagement banners, so to help me kind of inform how to make those a little better too. So yeah, everything that we aimed for went well, and so there you
You
go.
had enough ribbon?
Yeah, we got some leftovers too to make some more bookmarks. So thank you for doing that.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. Cool.
Okay, moving right along. Okay, to new business, the appropriations process and calendar. That's one of those things, I'd like to table this until the next meeting, because I think the people that were asking the questions about it were Jeff and Karen, and they're really not here. And I still have questions about it, and I would just prefer that we discuss it all with next month to go over the process and the calendar and have a clear understanding of it, so we're all on the same page and we're not repeating ourselves twice.
Well, we've got
That's-
some information to share about that, so we'll go ahead and share it, and then we'll hopefully review the video before the next meeting, and then we can continue to talk about it next month as well. So.
Okay, I just don't understand why we'd repeat it. It to me, why can't we just?
Sharing the
Because-
news is time.
Yeah.
The news that we have to share is time specific to the budget process.
Yeah. Which
So
we don't really-
are we going to have to put something in prior to June?
Mhm.
Yep.
Okay, all right, that's one.
But
of
not
those things.
appropriations.
No.
Yeah.
Do you want to?
So-
Do you want to talk
Yeah,
about it?
so
This
we've
is
got-
where she
Okay.
needs to talk.
Information to share, and typically if someone's missing a meeting, we're not really changing the agenda based on that. They're expected to follow up with the information, and we can always talk more about any agenda
We
items
can
at the
absolutely
next
talk about it
meeting.
next month again,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So long story short, to have the funds in place for the beginning of January for this project is actually not going to be an appropriations process. What we'll do, because it's next year's budget, is actually just a budget request. So the budget actually is kind of in process right now, or sort of like it's done, the tail end of that for
Yeah.
2026.
I'll be putting that in today.
Yeah, but Ben's able to kind of add this on to that as the budget kind of just got finalized for next year. But it's a budget request, so instead of going through council, I think Harold eventually approves it, the
But
city
then council
manager.
does, they have
Okay.
final approval, but they don't ever touch that level.
Okay, so yeah, it's more of an internal process through finance to basically still move funds from the house fund and make it available in our budget for 2026, in our expense budget, where we need to
So we're
spend those
moving the
funds.
funds like we had discussed out of the house funds in to
Yes.
cover this project.
Yeah.
So
But
did
it's
she
just-
say we would I thought when I talked with you that we would appropriate next year to move the funds, or would they do it just
No,
as a
so
part
the-
of the budget
Yes.
process?
Yes. So all we're
Okay.
asking budget to say this money is in the house fund. We need it in an expense account so that we can make a purchase and we can pay someone to do this. So we're moving it from the house fund into an expense account so that we can readily access the money in January, because appropriating funds doesn't happen in January. So this is a great way for us to have the money available.
Nice.
And it's the most, and because when we met with our budget lady yesterday, because the money is available in our house fund, there really isn't any reason why budget should say no, that we can't have the money. It's basically, we're just asking it to be moved in the budget season, which is right now. So we
Okay.
kind of are
So
really
so this is the budget that's going to be put
for
forward
26.
for
Yeah.
2026, and this has got to be approved by council, and this is why it's important that when's the budget get turned in? You said
28th. Next
28th.
week. Or in 2 weeks, but I'm gone next week.
So he's doing it now.
Okay.
Which is why we wanted to share this, because, and Sarah just said that this is the best way for us to have that money available in January, because the appropriation calendar is just, it doesn't line up that way for us to appropriate.
If somehow this doesn't work out, somehow we will pay PB 145 at the beginning of the year, and we will replace that. That would be my backup, but there's no reason this shouldn't work because we were just told it should. So.
We have the money.
However,
Yeah.
However,
I've been doing budget a long enough
the
time in my
that, you
career.
know, that isn't always the
Things
case.
are always possible.
Okay.
But you do
But
have a
I've got
backup.
it.
That's
I
good.
do have a backup plan. We're going to make that happen.
Okay, so this is going to go under the budget. We still can discuss the appropriation process and how we go about doing that in the June meeting, so we have a better understanding. Because it's not something I really understand too. So if I think if we have a better understanding, knowledge-wise, hopefully we're not going to be such pests to you about it, to be honest. That's the truth of the matter is. And we just have a better understanding of what we should be doing when asking you. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
About
so
certain
I'll
stuff?
share kind of an overview of the appropriations process and the calendar for this year at least.
We're
Just
told
so you can kind of see
October?
what that looks like. For this year, I mean, of course, an appropriation we probably would be doing next year or something, but just to kind of see how that falls. But generally, I mean, the process is, I mean, it's pretty basic. You've got to go with the calendar, and then, if there's something a project that we know that we need the money for, we basically put a request also through finance, I think, and then eventually there's a form.
Sarah asks for when appropriations are due. She'll say, if you have an appropriation to request, this will be your due date. Typically, it's a 2-month lag behind, because it has to go to 2 readings through council.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why this, for July, it's due in May, so that it can be read on July 8th and again on July 22nd for that approval, so that you can have access. That is the quickest. Sarah was sharing with us yesterday that it sometimes could take longer if you miss a cutoff or if there's a lot going on. So the quickest time lag is about 2 months from when you make the request of an appropriation, which again would be a donation, like if we needed money out of the donation account to help cost or cover the cost of something, or again, like with this, let's say we were going to do this now, the furniture, to get access to those funds because it has to be moved from the house fund into an expense account so that we have access to that money.
Okay, so just pulling it out of my hat here. So say, for instance, we have the fountain that really has issues and we need money for it to get fixed. We would have to have that submitted by May, details due to the budget by May 29th, correct?
If we wanted the money available in July, yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And then that you'll see that final one is October 23rd. So after October 23rd, we're not making any more, there's no more appropriations given the timeline of
Of year.
Yes.
For this
Yeah.
year,
okay.
yeah. And again, like Kristen said, just because we put those details in by May 29th doesn't necessarily mean we're going to have that money in July. But that's
Absolutely, because city council could be
Possibly.
put off for
Sure.
God
Yeah,
knows
if they're too
whatever
busy, then it
reading.
doesn't go into their meeting agenda and gets pushed back to the next.
Pistol
So
Toll is coming in July, so that's a big council one.
Yeah, all sorts of stuff is going to be happening. So
I think it's a
that's-
relatively simple process, though. I
Yeah.
mean, it could be if we needed $500 out of the house fund, that's what we're putting versus $50,000. I think it's a relatively straightforward process. Is asking, why you need the money, when you need it by, what you need it for,
yeah.
and then we send it off and say, please give us access to this money.
please. Okay. All right. It's just having that calendar year is really helpful for us.
Sure.
Because that is one of those things, and I know it's going to change every year, but could that be a possible thing that we could just get at the beginning of the year so we know when that timeline is? Could that be
We
included
could, or I
in
think
the
if there's a
manager's-
project that we feel like we need, that information for, then we can provide it. But it's really like an internal process with city staff, and then it gets approved by council. So
Okay, but I don't see why it would be it's not like a secret hidden handshake document that we can't see, is it? Is it not something that we could not have in the manager report in January for just when this appropriation
You can
dates
ask
are
Sarah
for the
when she
year?
gets it, when she puts it out.
Okay.
That would be
I
great.
don't know when she.
I'm guessing it's more like February-ish.
Yeah, likewise.
They
I don't think it's
got
right at the
January.
very beginning.
Well, which is fine,
Yeah.
but if we could just have it for the year, and then we would know. We're not fighting you.
Okay.
But like for the fountain, you'd have access to money, like for an emergency thing.
The
like
fountain we'll just pay for.
Yeah.
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 Now, if we wanted to pay it back, like, and that's exactly what I'm talking about in January,
okay.
that backup. I mean, I have access to funds. We'd fix it, and then we'd appropriate money to pay
Pay it
that
back.
Oh,
money
okay.
back.
Okay.
I'm loaning money to the museum, for example, or at least I think I am.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an example of that. So, but to get it done now,
Mm-hmm.
so a repair like that, we're always gonna something functional like that. We want to get it done right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you for all the work you do.
Yeah, it's just understanding it better. And thank you for your patience in regards to that. Any questions or concerns in regards to this?
Yeah.
Another thing that when we were meeting with Sarah, she gave us the available house fund at the projected available at the end of the year was 79,000, and so if we put a request in for close to 30 for this table, just for the knowledge of the board, that is a significant chunk of, which I know we've talked about and we've all approved it, but just for more knowledge of, the house fund isn't exponentially enormous, so if we take close to $30,000, that'll knock that down, which is why I don't think we always we're not always just like appropriating here and there for things around the house.
Which is perfect sense, but it also makes sense to us why we need to consider doing fundraisers and other things to give back and to replenish those funds into the house fund, because they're not a bottomless pit.
Yeah.
There's not a money tree here anywhere on the land that I'm aware of. I wish there was. Anyway, so thank you. But I think that's really what it comes down to, is if we have a better understanding of timelines and what those funds are and what they look like, how are we going to replenish them?
Because we have our own, Callahan has its own fund and its own budget, basically extra money that we make, at the end of the year also helps replenish those funds.
Mm-hmm.
It's not usually a ton, but yeah.
But I also know, we've gone through COVID, we've gone through these ups and downs where, God forbid, we don't have as many weddings and we don't have this and that are replenishing those funds. We're going to have to come up with other ways to
Make some money.
to refund them, whether it be through grants or whether it be through a fundraising process.
Yeah, fundraising is always welcome.
Yes, it is.
So, yeah.
Okay. Any
So
other questions or concerns in regards to under new business?
So I think in terms of the agenda, we've gone over that process. The calendar's provided. We'll provide it again at the when it's available next year. So I'm not planning to leave this on the agenda, but that said, after those that aren't here, if they review the meeting and they have questions next month, of course they can ask those questions. But
Well, can we put that under? Can we put it under items from staff for under the agenda for next month's meeting, so those questions could be answered, or any comments at that point?
Well, that's what I'm saying, is that if somebody misses a meeting, they'll review the information, and if they have questions, they can bring it to the next meeting. But it doesn't necessarily need to remain an agenda item.
It can be items from board.
Yep, anybody can talk at that point.
Yeah, they can
Yeah.
bring up any questions because they might have questions about any aspect of the
yeah.
agenda, and so they can ask those at the next meeting. And then if there's further follow-up needed, then we can always put it on the agenda again for the following month.
Okay. All right, moving right along to the quarters of the quarter one of manager's report.
Yeah, so that was provided in April. in the April packet, so I just, if anybody has questions.
Yeah, I do. I do have questions, and this really comes, and I could have talked about it earlier, but this is what I tend to do. I do. Under restoration and expenses, I have a question about why some of the repair and maintenance.
Are you looking at a specific month?
No, overall, just the overall line items and why those are combined and not restoration compared to repair and maintenance compared to restoration.
There is no line item for restoration in the city budget.
Yeah. It
And
doesn't
so
exist.
it's specifically so it can't be separated out in regards to that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, not every restoration project is necessarily going to go under repair and maintenance. It kind of depends on the scope of the project. Sometimes professional contracted
Professional
services
contract, yeah.
is probably more used. In terms of which expense account we would charge, stuff like that too.
And it's basically, okay. From my accounting experience, this is what the city lines are in their budget, period, correct?
Yes.
And those aren't broken up differently. And to ask, this isn't a specific report that you file on your own, this is how the city
This is
budget.
what's provided, from
Okay.
the finance department.
Okay, I just,
So Ben, in your budget for next year, are you wanting to add a line for
You can't.
the table?
You can't.
No,
You can't.
it doesn't
So
exist.
That's a finance decided.
That's-
In
it's-
fact, they
it's just-
consolidated all this.
they,
When we went to Munis in 2016, 17, they actually consolidated many items.
And they
Some of
So
them
if you
didn't make
wanted-
sense to me, but I'm not the finance guy.
So if you
I
want
don't
to,
try
so when you're doing your budget and you're, like, say the number that came up, the 30,000, so what line would you put that in?
That,
Is that
It
kind of
de-
your
it
question?
depends.
Okay.
it depends. So if, it depends what you're asking for. So a line item is every year. So that's an ongoing thing.
Okay.
But you want to change it for every year. We ask for one-time items year to year, and sometimes they're approved.
Uh-huh.
And they would be added to whatever line item is most appropriate for that year. It's actually quite frankly a little confusing because it changes that line item dramatically.
Yeah.
Like if they add in a vehicle, it adds $30,000 to a thing or $40,000. So we know that's what it is, but then we have to pull it out when we're actually figuring the actual budget on our end.
Oh, okay.
I don't love the way.
So
that
you
goes.
have a more
It's how it is.
detailed,
Well,
like under
I would
these-
just pull it out on my end.
Yeah.
Like if I'm telling somebody,
Yeah.
that line item isn't 38,000, it's 8,000. So, I do it a lot more figuring cost recovery.
uh-huh,
Like those items don't go to cost recovery, so I have to pull it back out of there because it naturally adds these up into cost recovery. As an example of recreation.
mm-hmm.
Like I said, I don't love it, but it's how it is. We can
So-
see every single thing. I mean, you can
Yeah.
print out every single thing that was spent in any of them.
we could get a more detailed if we need to for grant purposes.
Oh, yeah.
It just is. I just don't like combined restoration and maintenance because to me but I understand why they're doing it. You guys have nothing to do with it. It's all coming down from financial. Right. And I just wanted to verify that was the reason for it, that they're all combined. We can't set up a separate line. Maybe in the past there even has been, but the finance came back and you just said they compiled it.
But as you just now said, if you want more detail for writing of a grant, it's available.
You could, yeah.
It is
Absolutely.
available and we can break that down. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's
No. Yeah, yeah. That's it.
Sorry. I thought it was the table.
You know. Yeah. That's all right. Just a little jolt. They don't ask that question again, Marie. Anyway, it's just one of those questions that I'm just like, I wish we had a very specific thing because we're not Because we're a historic property. And that's one of those things that I just,
But other than needing it for grant purposes,
it just makes it so much clearer to understand that we're doing this for historic preservation, period. And for me, it's about making that very clear that we're
and when you write the
restoring.
grants, then that's when you
Yeah.
really need
Well,
to
it
explain
doesn't
that. So
take a lot of feedback.
that answers.
That's not even.
it can be answered.
Yeah, a lot
So
of
It can be
Sometimes.
answered. I just
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We all
and
have
a lot
our
of the
own
restoration.
perspectives.
Kristen just brought up the point. A lot of the restoration stuff comes out of, or some of it. It depends on what it is and how it's used, but some of it comes out of PBF 145, which isn't reflected here
That's-
anyway.
anyway,
So-
so it's not even
entirely
shown in
different.
the. Okay.
So
Different
if
bucket
it's
of money.
information that we can get that isn't going to take that much legwork, we could get it if you needed it for something. It
Okay.
exists.
I just think it's very clear that we understand as a board that we can look at the numbers and really say, this is what it is. So that's again, it's just one of those things. Alrighty. Does anybody else have any questions or concerns about the manager's report from last month that we didn't get to?
I just wanted to note that the March, when I do the manager's report, not all of the financials for the quarter are always available. So
Mhm.
sometimes portions of them come later. So that's why the March numbers are in the May packet instead.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate you for including those in the May packet.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Appreciate all you do. just one of those things that, and again, does anybody else have any questions in regards to the,
Six weddings books. That's exciting.
Mm-hmm. Could even get another one. I'm still getting inquiries for like September and October.
Yay.
So-
okay. Do we have any concerns or questions about her wedding amounts or compared to last year or year before? The number of events coming in? Do we have any concerns? That we aren't meeting the numbers? That we have in the
I
past?
don't. I mean, financially, so you can see the first quarter here, but you know, like last year, for example, I think we had 5 months that were, you know, more expenses than revenue. But April's not, April's not on here yet. But I think we had 10 grand revenue in April, so it just fluctuates a lot from month to month. Right now, we're in the black for the year. So, but like I said, it'll fluctuate. But as long as we end up, you know,
Ahead of the game,
ahead of the game by the end of the year, which we expect to,
then we're good.
yeah. So last year we had 8 weddings. Right now we've got 6, but we could, potentially could add another 1 or 2. And some of them, you know, last year that includes like some of the micro weddings and ceremony onlys and things like that. The nice thing about this year is this is the first year where the new packages are fully in place, and so the net revenue is much, much higher than it's ever been for those that are utilizing the full like ceremony and reception packages, because we've got our own tables and chairs, and so we're not, you know, then spending another couple grand on those out of the revenue that we're getting for weddings. So the net revenue for each event is higher than it used to be. So
Thank you for answering my question,
Yeah.
because that's basically what I was asking.
Yeah.
Since we've implemented the new things, how's that working? Is that, are we getting the numbers where we should, and how are people finding us?
yeah,
That's the other thing.
well, as far as, you know, any reviews or things like that, I think the new packages are a lot more easy to navigate and straightforward for people, and haven't had any negative feedback about those. So we'll see. I mean, like I said, this is the first year that those are fully, like, we're fully getting that net revenue from the revamp of those. And the first wedding is June 7th.
Well, we're
So
hitting.
that'll be the first one that, you know, we'll like get that full revenue from. But April was a busy month. May's got a lot of smaller private rentals and things like that too. So Yeah, it's just
I'm
kind of,
thinking
January,
June's around
February,
the corner.
March
It's the
are
wedding
usually
ceremony
slow.
season.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so I think we're in good shape.
okay, great. All right. All right. Anybody have any questions or concerns about the house manager's report? Okay, moving forward. Any items from the board?
Sorry, I have one thing for items
Oh.
for staff.
Did I skip that?
That's okay.
Oh, it's-
It's
it's in
under
there.
the same.
Okay,
Section.
apologize.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I sent out an email too, but just a reminder, and I'll remind you next month that the board and commission member appreciation event this year that's put on by the city is an ice cream social on June 17th at 6 p.m. On the lawn outside of the Civic Center. So, FYI, go get some ice cream.
I will be there. Hopefully we'll see
It's
you
right
all
before
your lovely
the
faces.
council meeting.
Is it 17th?
June 17th, yeah, at 6 p.m., right before the council meeting. So, yeah.
Like Library Plaza, right?
Yeah.
This is the lawn outside the Civic Center off Emery, so I think it's on,
Oh, on
the
the back
other
side.
side. Yeah,
Oh, because
okay.
it's
Good to know.
going to be shaded over there.
yeah,
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
And the
so
ice
it's-
cream
yeah, it's
will
like
not
on
melt
the-
as
on
fast.
the
Cool,
backside,
cool.
yeah.
Knock on wood. Okay. Any other items then?
Mm-mm.
Items from the board. Okay. This I did want to talk about. This is what's going on with the state in regards to our 150th centennial. I'm going to go ahead and hand these out to Liz. You can each take one. Brittany, if you want, and Sheriff, do you
I
want
just
one?
want to take a peek, yeah.
Okay.
Stay with us.
And I was asked to be on commenting on the committee in regards to what was they're going to be putting in front of the state capitol from our area, and I didn't mention the Callahan house. Imagine that. And I talked about this in regards to this, and I also am hoping that we could. I spoke to the new Longmont magazine, and they will possibly. Hopefully do a coverage for the Callahan house covering our 150th thing in the magazine. So that's a goal. But this is what's going on with the governor's stuff at the state capitol. They're planning this whole new walkway exhibit access piece in front of the capitol where students will be dropped off, and then it has a overhead walkway piece, and it will be patrolled by the state patrol. It's not going to be part of the city of Denver. It's part of the state, and other comments were made that hopefully they'll be using other artists and groups from throughout the state, not just about Denver. So that's all I'll share.
So you talked to the Longmont magazine about featuring Callahan House in regards to
Not just that,
150th.
no, but the state 150th celebration.
Yes, that's
Yes.
what I was. Yeah.
Yes.
When are they starting this?
They already have started this,
Okay.
but they.
There's a city committee also.
Oh, cool.
Eric's on that.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the big things that I'm like, please talk to all the museum people, please, and make sure and talk about the history in the area.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that was that. So let's see. Is there any other additional items from the board?
The Sunshine Tea has started 50 minutes ago. 10 o'clock. 3:30 Ross. Is that 3:30 Ross?
Yeah, it is.
And it's the original Shy House. Solomon Shy built it. And I don't know who the people are that own it right now, but anyway, Sunshine Tea is, if you don't know, they raise funds for dental work for kids in the St. Vrain Valley. So they have a tea once a year, and they have all kinds of refreshments and things, and they're asking for donations. I mean, you don't have to pay to get in or anything, but if you're wanting to go, anybody's welcome, and you can go and make a donation and enjoy the company. See the house.
That being
Actually,
said,
all of it.
also there is the Strawberry Festival this weekend, and we are me, myself, and other requesters will be running part of the booth to help raise funds for the restoration of the dining room table, in addition to items that we'll be hosting at a garage sale on June 7th and 8th, which is 6th and 7th. I've got to correct myself several times. 6th and 7th is the Quest for garage sale in which we will be raising funds for the restoration here.
And that is where?
And that is 3000 Mountain View. Now you got me all panicked.
Is the Strawberry Festival Saturday and Sunday?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Cool.
What did you ask?
If the Strawberry Festival was Saturday and Sunday this weekend.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm going to recorrect that. The garage sale is at 1227 Princeton Court, across the street from 3000 View. So,
But that's June
And that's
7th
someone's
and
home.
8th.
it is the 6th and 7th.
6th and 7th.
It'll be Friday and Saturday.
Okay. What are the times?
8 until 2.
Thank you.
Okay. Let me think. All right. Anything else from the board? Okay. Moving on to the future agenda items. The Callahan House book, new edition. And the Holiday House Decorating Committee will be meeting in July. I know Julie and I are setting up a time to look at some dolls to go and add for our decorating. The Santa visit we'll discuss in July. Is that what's on here? Or should we not move that to? Do we have to worry about booking him or making sure that
We decided on the date, which is the Thursday of Questers, so it'll be the same as last year where there's an event that night. We'll make it work.
Okay, I'll have it.
Did you reach out to
Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay.
so Santa's booked, and so I think July is fine.
Okay.
On our end, we need to figure out what the registration
Yes,
process is
yeah,
going to
yeah,
be
yeah.
this year, which I think we've got a timeline set aside for that.
Yes, we do.
Because we're going to try to do like a lottery or a different system this year. So I think having discussing it again in July, it's probably even earlier than is needed. I mean,
Okay.
it's going to be the same as what we've done, the timeline and the marketing and all of that, but the registration process will be a little different. But that
Is there any way that we can do a quick blast out about the Santa visit to the Callahan House, the people that are on the Callahan House email?
Well,
in regards to
historically,
that?
we haven't really marketed that event much because it's so popular and it fills up so quickly. I think we need to know what the process is going to be for registration this year before we do any marketing and figure out, how we're going to get that word out to make it available for kind of a wider audience, and so people don't have to get online at midnight to register and we get the same group of people. We need to figure that out before we do any marketing for that.
I agree, but I also think that it's one of those things that people want to know about the events coming up, and if that's one of the few things that's not included, it seems it's hard for me to get families to say, oh, sign up for the email. Why would I? When I don't get any additional.
No, we can typically we do very internal marketing, it's
That's what I'm
on the
talking
Callahan website and maybe Cityline, but it's not in the brochure or anything like that. But we want to make sure we know what that's going to look like before we're sharing information with anybody this year.
I agree,
So,
but
yeah.
I'm just going to put it
But
out
yeah,
there.
it'll go through
Okay.
those avenues eventually.
Okay, great. Okay, and the Habitat for Humanity, if I can speak, Gift of Home Tour we're also going to discuss in July. Then at that point,
Yeah, we're confirmed for that, but we're just waiting on
Okay,
information
and
from
hush.
them.
don't share that with anybody else. Thank you for telling me that.
That's typically what they've been doing. You don't know where the houses are until you have bought a ticket, and the day or so before, then you have a secret code and you find out where they are.
Okay. Well, which is good, so you don't have strangers just showing up to your home if you happen to be
Yeah.
at a house on the tour. That would be good.
Now they may do it differently because we could be a featured. I don't know. But
Okay.
Probably wise to keep it under wraps till we know.
Yeah, I'm not sure we want to scare Brittany with that funness. Let's not do that. We'll keep it under wraps.
What's scary?
Just blast it out and have everybody knocking down.
Oh,
the doors.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. If there's nothing else to discuss, can I get a motion for adjournment? Cindy. Second. All right. All in favor? Okay. You're through.